Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Home Happy Podcast. We're glad to have you here. And we have, of course, Michael and Dallas here, and
Hey,
as
hey.
well as Mathew Collins, our special guest that we're so excited to chat about.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Awesome. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so Matt, if you can share with us a little bit more of who you are, what you do, and then we'll sort of take it from there.
Awesome. Yeah, well, when I go through border security, they never believe what I do. So so it's hard to describe. I make videos, or you like make movies? No, I don't quite make movies. What do you do? Like, I remember back when I used to make wedding films, and I said, yeah, I make wedding videos, and they didn't believe me. They were just like, that's not a real job. You can't make money at that. And I was like, well, no, that's what I do. But yeah, I started out as a wedding filmmaker, and then sort of transitioned into doing more commercial documentary work. So that's kind of what I do. I make videos for brands and for companies to help, promote what they do and dive a little deeper into who they are as people, so that their audience can connect with them a little bit more on a personal level and get a little bit more attached to their services or their brand and become more loyal customers and hopefully buy from them all the time. So that's kind of what I do. I've been doing this for over 15 years, worked in the film industry before that. And yeah, I love having a camera in my hands. I love telling stories about people in the most genuine way possible. That's kind of what I like doing. So I used to run a different company where we did more, we sort of transitioned into doing more like corporate stuff, more and more commercial stuff, where there was a lot of produced things, where we're doing things with actors, or we were trying to do things with actors. And I just started to feel a little bit like it wasn't what I loved about what we used to do. So I decided to start my own business called Hometown Creative, which is a little bit more about telling genuine stories about real people. So getting away from things where we have scripts and actors and doing more things that dive deeper into who these people are behind these businesses. So again, in a really genuine way, you can get a sense of who these people are behind the companies that you're buying things from. And that allows you to connect with them more. That's what I love doing. So that's kind of what I've been focused on for the last 8 months or so with this new venture of mine. And it's been really exciting.
You and I have known each other a long time. We've done some work together. We've had some fun.
Yeah.
And I know that you're a huge film buff. And I think that comes through when you watch some of the stuff you do. I think what I always loved was you always make the person in the movie or the film the star of the show. Like, you tell their story, and I think that's what comes across so differently than so many other, like, people are competing with you. I think they just go out and like, look at my drone shot, look at this, and it's not about the person, it's more about the technical and just sort of putting logos up. But I think what I really enjoy about yours is that your passion comes through, and I think that's what really shows.
Yeah, totally. And I think nowadays you can do so much with, like, when you talk about drones. I mean, I was doing this long enough that they weren't drones when I started my first business. And then they came along and we were like everybody else, like kid in a candy store. You're like, oh my God, you can fly the camera now. And then that's all, every shot becomes a drone shot, right? But then, like you say, you very, very quickly become just like everybody else, that's really just trying to get cool shots. And I love getting cool shots, but I try to prioritize how they fit into the story that we're trying to tell. And I love a drone shot, but I also love a super tight macro shot. I love, or I just love a great. And the thing I think I love the most, and this is why I lean more into doing more people-driven stuff now. And I guess you could say it's a more of a documentary style, but I just love like seeing genuine reactions from people doing what they're passionate about, right? So that's what I've been trying to focus on, is finding people that love what they do, and then be able to just be there to pick that up, right? So
yeah, and I think one of the things you probably underestimate how good you are is interviews. I mean, it doesn't necessarily show as you interviewing people because of the way you edit them, but you get people to say things and act certain ways, and then their passion comes out in that. And that's part of what I really enjoy. It's like you get them to talk about themselves in a way that they would never talk about themselves. And
well,
right?
Totally. Yeah, no, thanks. I mean, it's definitely like when you're doing an interview with somebody, I think people can get very nervous and they'd stop acting like themselves, because you can imagine I usually have a couple cameras at least, and there's a guy behind me, and then there's lights, and I got to put a microphone on them, and so it can be very like overwhelming. It's not a normal situation. I can feel like sitting in the dentist chair a little bit.
Yeah.
And then people can get in their heads and they can start to they think, especially if it's like the owner of a company, because they think they have to say certain things.
Mhm.
So I've worked really hard at trying to create an environment and have a system where I really try. My biggest thing is try to make them not feel like they're on camera, but you still want it to look good. So I have little tricks and things that I do, but I think the general thing is just treat it like try to make them feel like they're not being interviewed by having a genuine conversation. Don't have a sheet in front of you that says, all right, question number 1, or, oh, that was a good answer, but can you start it by answering with, repeating the question? And then people just go, okay. And then they try to do it. And it just feels
fake,
right? So you gotta allow for some editing to slice and dice, but you want those genuine moments, right? I like telling a story through interviews because you get to meet the people if it's done right. Like if it's done, because you see so many corporate videos where the interviews are not done, in my opinion, in a way that makes them feel genuine. It's very like they're reading a script almost. So I like to do it in a way where it feels like it's coming out of a conversation. And when you watch the 2 or 3 minute long brand video, you don't realize that there's 1,000 edits in there. That just feels like one thought, but it's a series of little moments of a conversation, right? Which feels so much more genuine than someone writing a script and saying we have to say this. It's probably easier to do that. It takes less time to edit it, but it doesn't feel as genuine. So and that's what I'm after. Right. So
Dallas, you're in front of the camera a lot. How do you let your confidence shine through? What is your take on that?
Well, we do a lot of takes because we screw up all the time, but it's just about being genuine. That's what people want, and I think that's why these long form podcasts are so successful.
Yeah.
They want to see a real person. And even when it comes to politicians, like I'll just go to the Joe Rogan, JD Vance, all these, actually hearing the guy swear and talk, you realize he's a real person.
Yeah.
So I think there's really something to that now.
So Matt, tell us how's your process changed from when you first started to where you are now?
How's it changed? I don't know. I think I think honestly, the truth of the matter is, I mean, again, I sort of left my old company that I started, I think partially because when we were doing weddings, I think I just kind of stumbled into it. And the honest truth is, I was working on a TV show. I was finished a TV show, and you sometimes would have a few months off between shows. And they were coming out with these fancy cameras that were pretty affordable that you could literally just buy from London Drugs that made your work look amazing. So we bought a couple of those and just started doing some friends' weddings just to kind of practice and get used to doing it. And then I think what I realized was like there's a lot of genuine moments that happen, and when you can but just by accident catch one of those moments, you're like, oh man, that felt amazing to get to be there. And then you go, oh well, actually, like if I could probably put a plan together where I could capture more of these moments, but sort of plan for it, but not make it feel like I planned for it.
Yeah.
And I kind of love that, like, for example, like obviously there's the ceremony where things are just going to happen, but there's moments like when they first see each other, or when they read a card, or when dad comes in and sees her in the dress for the first time. Like there's all these little moments that you can go, okay, that's a real moment that's going to happen that I know is going to happen. So I can sort of set myself up. And then you start to learn more about lighting, and you start to learn more about all these things, and all the craft starts to develop, right? But I think in general, that was what I loved most, is I liked those genuine moments, and if the lighting wasn't perfect, or everything wasn't perfect, it still was amazing to be a part of. And most people didn't notice that,
they're not going to notice it,
those little things. Yeah. So I like that I was working on those craft elements, like trying to make it look better, trying to make it sound better. But what I always loved the most was just like, oh, like that person is just so real right now, and I'm capturing this amazing, important moment for them. So I love doing that. And then my sort of, I guess my vision for it was to turn it into something that where I could do that with commercial clients. And then I think just my partner and I were kind of on different, I think he wanted to do more produced stuff, and I think I always wanted to do more of that. And so I kind of went along with the produced thing for a long time, but then finally kind of decided to come back to this. And I think in terms of like how my work's changed, I think it's really just, I think the goal has never really changed for me personally. And that's kind of what I realized. So now that I'm back doing, really trying to push that, you know, creating wedding films for commercial clients, basically, that's what I'm trying to do. It just feels right. And so now I can take all my skill that I've gained over the years, but also all the new technology, you know, like it's amazing. I can get this beautiful gimbal shot, and then 2 seconds later I can have my drone in the sky, and then I can, you know, have my other fancy camera getting beautiful detail shots, and I can do it all in a few hours and be home in time for dinner, you know? So it's pretty amazing that you can do so much now with so little. So
you know what's funny is I think when somebody would watch your video, they would think, oh, he just showed up and shot this and it just happened. And I think that's the beauty of you obviously have amazing planning, and there's a ton of work that goes into that. And then you kind of know what you're doing when you get there and you shoot it. And then obviously editing takes a ton of time too. So like there's so much that goes into it to make it look like it's just happened. And I think that's what to me, like you guys have always been really good at that. And I think you have a really good vision of what you want to kind of have it look like, but then you got to figure out how to get there.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's a big part of it. That's the craft part of it, I guess, right? Is just sort of, you know, you're always trying to do something good, so you're following your instincts, but then you learn along the way, like, oh, maybe a better way to get them to come across more genuine when they're doing their thing is to tell them this, or to actually tell them less, or, you know, I don't know, place them in a situation, just let them do their thing and start further back, and then slowly come. Like, there's lots of little things that you start to do to start to figure out how, when you're filming somebody, they don't look like they're being filmed.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, when you get it back into the editing room and you're working on it, you're like, oh yeah, that doesn't look genuine, I don't want to use it, you know? So so then you start to think about, what did I do for this shot that made it? Was it just them, or did I do something? And so the truth is, it's a combination of the two. I mean, what I do now, I think that's different, is I really try to make sure people are a good fit for what I want to do. So if I have a conversation with somebody and they seem really genuine and like and they love what they do, then like that's enough for me. You know, as long as they can afford the big dollars I charge. But no, but after that, it's like, if they check those two boxes, then I'm like, great, like we can do something awesome. But if all they talk about is how they want to get likes and clicks, and they don't seem very genuine, then I'm like, I'm probably not going to make something that's gonna do what you needed to do. So so screening is important. Once you have the right person, and they're doing something that is fun to film, right, that they love doing, then it's pretty easy in a lot of ways after that. That's the hardest part, right?
You know, what's fascinating about what you just said is, and Dallas can relate to this, I know Clint and I can, is it's finding the right audience for what you're doing, right? And you don't, when you first start in business, you think you want to get everybody, and like, no, you don't want everybody, because like, if it's just not the right fit, it's just not the right fit. And that's not anything against them. It's just like, they're better served by somebody else. And it's tough when you first start to kind of accept that you got to say no sometimes, right?
Yeah. And I think with like business, that's an interesting thing. When you first start out, you kind of just, I mean, every business owner, I think, is the same. For some reason, maybe they were trying to fix their door, and they stumbled upon some genius thing and then turned it into a business. And before you know it, they're scaling that, and now they have millions of customers. And it's like, maybe it's not, they just kind of stumbled into that in a lot of ways. But then you have all these customers and you have all these employees, and it sort of turned into something different than maybe what you initially thought it might be. And sometimes that's good for some people, and sometimes that's not. And I think that's kind of what happened to us. Like, we were trying to expand and grow, and we had like 10 employees, and then we were doing we had all these clients all over the place. And for me, like I realized, no, I like really love making the quality videos and working with people. And I had to step away from that because I was too busy dealing with all the projects and all the employees and all the contractors. And I realized I need to kind of make it smaller a little bit, you know, and
that's hard to do though. That's a tough move.
Yeah, but it's but that's it. Some people, and I think you hear this thing, which I think is kind of BS, is like if you're not growing, you're shrinking or you're dying or whatever in business, which I just think is like a stupid thing to say, because I think that not every business needs to have 1 million employees and needs to make $1 million, right? Like if you just want to have, if you want to love what you do and make enough money to live, you know, you have to find the right business that works for that, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to do. Maybe it'll all come crashing down, but so far, you know, I've like had the best year I've ever had, I think, in terms of like finances, and it's just me. So, and I like keeping it small. And when I need to contract people out, I do. Or if I get too busy, I can hire somebody or whatever the case may be. But I've liked so far, anyways, scaling down. And I just think we live in a world where everybody wants to scale up and be rich and have all this stuff that they can say. I just want to enjoy what I do and you know, not be anxious about stuff all the time. So,
I think we've all gone through that. Hey, Mike,
yeah,
expanding a team. Like we've had 5 people on our team and now we're back to 2, like just to keep it simple. And that way, like you said, you're choosing quality over quantity.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. That was, yeah, much more articulate than me, but yeah, quality over. That's true, right? And we would do stuff that I'd be like, oh, I don't like this video, but like the client's happy, I guess. And you know, and they're like, yeah, it's great, we're happy, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm not happy. I don't like it, you know.
And you just spent 100 hours working on it.
or our team did, and I'm just like, what are we putting out there? And I just yeah, so it's not like that with it wasn't like that with everything, and there was a lot of great experiences, obviously, but it's just, yeah, I mean, you have to just make that decision. What kind of person are you? Are you somebody that is more about the business, or are you somebody that's more about what you do? And can you ride that line? Because you still have to balance. You still have to figure out who's going to do your bookkeeping, who's going to do your marketing, or how much of that do you need to do, and how much time do you spend in the business versus on the business? Because you do have to sort of, there's always that's there still, but yeah, kind of choosing quality over quantity is something that I think sometimes you need a little experience to decide what works for you, which, you know, I had. So yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I think we'll wrap it there. I think it was a great conversation.
Awesome.
Unless anybody else has anything else to say, I think, you know, we really enjoyed it. I love that you're so passionate about what you're doing. You've obviously found the right niche now. And yeah, I hope everybody else enjoyed this. We'd love to have you like and subscribe. If you have questions for us or for Matthew, please put them down below. We're going to have all of his contact info down below as well. And thanks again for joining us on the HomeHappy Podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. That was fun.